good morning. Thank you all for being here. It is always a thrill to talk about casting and to be joined by such amazing creative people. So I'd like to really jump in and talk to you guys a bit about, like, what would you say casting is? What does a casting director do? How does the process work, especially when you're working on, let's say, an independent film?
Usually we speak to a producer or director and they send us a script and we decide whether we're going to do it or not. Once we're past that point, usually with independents they want to attach the two leads because they're not funded yet. So we go through that process 6 weeks to 10 weeks where they pay us a fee for that. Once we're attached, money is dropped, and then we continue to do the rest of the casting, which could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months to a year, depending on what we're casting. And that's basically it. And then we start seeing actors to read roles that we choose them for. And then we go down to a callback process where we usually have something in person so that there can be a chemistry read, which is really seeing how roles read together and if there's some chemistry there. Once that's finished and the callback's done, then we start booking talent, sending deal memos, working through that, and then a final contract, and then they shoot. Anywhere from, I'd say most independents are anywhere from 15 to 30 days. That's usually what the funding is and how much money they have to shoot with, and they want to shoot quickly so that they can get into that editing process and hopefully get it, screened at a festival, and that's basically it.
Great. And just to dig into some of that process a little more, Kristen, how do you start to choose which actors potentially you would bring in for a role?
Depends on the script and what the directors and producers are looking for. Sometimes the main roles are already brought in ahead of time, so we get to present other options, or we'll start with a list of name actors and other actors depending on what city we're casting in.
Great. And Jennifer, how would you decide which projects to take on initially? What about a script or a creative team would make you decide that you might want to work on that project?
I think the number one thing is, are we all aligned in casting to the story that's being told? Also, do I relate to the script, or is there a message about the script that I think is really wonderful and socially relevant? That's something that's really important to me. Is the director and I, as well as the producer, are we all on similar pages as to what kind of caliber of talent the script warrants? And also aesthetically, we're kind of I feel like casting directors, we're like painters in a way. We have a blank canvas, which is the script. We have the words and whatnot, but then it's who's gonna bring, this, sketch to life in a way. And, I think it's, they have to be realistic as to what their goals are, and also the amount of turnaround that we need, especially because I also cast not just actors, but also non-actors. It depends on the world that we're building. So those are some of the things. And also the director's body of work. Is this their first feature? Is this their fourth? What have they done before? Do they go to film school? Do they not? I don't mind either way, as long as you have to have a point of view, though. And also, I love knowing who the cinematographer is. I'm a very visual person, because I want to make sure everyone looks good and kind of just how everything how cohesive it's going to be. So that's important.
Great. Liz, anything to add there?
I think also, part of our process is bringing people to the table that maybe are brand new, or looking at the idea for a role that's very different than what they were thinking. That's kind of makes the casting process really exciting by doing things like that are just a little bit different than the norm.
And if the team is open to that, that's
Yeah. We are a liaison between the actors and the agents and managers and the production team, so we really help facilitate bringing all of it together.
Wonderful, wonderful. So when you're going through the casting process, how do you navigate finding the best actors for the budget, but also that are able to authentically represent the roles as written?
Should I go?
Anybody,
Yes.
whoever wants to jump in.
Okay, so as an example, we were casting an Apple Plus TV series, an animation TV series, where we were looking for a deaf actor. And we had to cast the person in 2 stages of their life. It was based on the author's story. So that was an amazing process to go through because it was at the height of before we shut down in the pandemic. So that process really shifted. We were looking for talent that were not actors because we were keeping to the storyline of being very authentic to the author's story, looking for a deaf actor who wore cochlear implants and had gone through this experience. So that was a really challenging project, but really fulfilling to bring that authenticity to the table.
one of the films I worked on was called Stolen Dreams. It was about a Central American migrant who died in ICE custody. And this was like a couple of years ago. It's kind of talk about life imitating art and the other way around. And I was looking at actors who identify as Central American. It was really important to my director, who was not Latino, but he wanted to make sure that he was true to the story that he wanted to tell about immigration and whatnot. So I looked at actors and non-actors. There's also casting teens, and casting a family, and majority of it was teenagers. So that was really interesting. So it's not like someone had to have been a migrant, but maybe they could relate to it in some way, whether they know someone that went through the process and whatnot. And I did contact a lot of like performing arts middle schools and high schools, and we just got really amazing feedback as to like, oh, thank you so much for telling the story. Like, it's like moments like that that remind us like, this is why we do what we do, to tell stories that matter, you know, and to not just, like Liz really eloquently said, not just look at the normal channels of casting, which are great, but also kind of open it up, you know, depending on like the project and what it calls for.
Also, we're working on something right now that's hard. I mean, it's called The Movable Line, and it's about gun control. And it's really an interesting process in finding, first of all, the stars that are willing to do it. A lot of people don't want to be involved politically like that. But also speaking to actors and getting their feedback on what their feelings are, because it's interesting to find out where people stand as far as that's concerned. So we're right, like, knee deep in the middle of that right now.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm hearing a lot about like alignment, like looking for projects that are aligned with you, but also actors who are aligned with the material. And how do you assess that? I know it becomes something where it becomes just part of what you do, but are there particular things that you're looking for from actors, or is it really subjective, like project to project?
I think it's really different from project to project, unless you're casting Hallmark, which is pretty much cookie cutter casting. But yeah, every project is different, and every project has its own through line of what you need to find. But particularly these projects that are about culture now and what we're going through, is difficult because to speak to somebody about their political views is a very difficult thing, because a lot of people don't want to even discuss that.
So how do you start to navigate, let's say that you're in the process of attaching talent to a film that you feel aligned with and excited about? How do you start to do that? Like, do you start by reaching out to agents? Like, what's your process in attaching people to an indie that doesn't have full funding?
It's hard. It's funny because the projects, there's only one project that I actually worked on that had no funding before it got to me. Usually it's partially financed, if not fully financed. But this story is such a beautiful story. I just loved it. It's a coming of age story about two sisters. I have two nieces, so it kind of reminded me of them in a way. And I won't go into the story of it, but like I ended up attaching 4 really great actors, and they all been on series of regular Netflix shows. So that was really exciting. I think it's just the script. It begins and ends with the script. If people are they is this something that they're looking for? Maybe someone has been doing a lot of series work and they want to do an independent film. I start by looking at the script, I read it twice, and then at that point I'm like, okay, I speak with my director, we talk about ideas, and then I kind of go through everything that I've watched or just my files and whatnot, and think about actors, or even pass lists from other projects I attach talent to, like, oh, I remember this person's looking for this. Maybe they'll be interested in this project. So we keep copious notes, that's for sure. And we remember like everything. It's kind of scary. I feel like a little CIA agent with like our little black book or something. And then, depending on the budget, we have relationships with agents and managers and say like, hey, this is what I'm working on. These are the people, at least this is how I approach it. This is who I'm thinking of from your client list. Is this something that they're open to at this point? That is, if it's like something that's a little bit lower budgeted, or maybe it's a very different role that the actor has not done yet. I like throwing in wild cards that I think could land creatively. So I start with having I need to have silence in my room, really kind of not like actually meditate, but kind of really think about what's, who I think these people are, their backstory or whatnot, and who's out there that this is something different for them, or maybe it's about a cause that they support, and that's something that might be a draw to them to do the project. It's all these different things that we kind of have to keep tabs on, whether we read magazines or watch shows on Netflix or go to the movie theater. We have to keep tabs on everyone. It'd be a little overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's we kind of are like, well, what's the story about, and who's doing what, who hasn't done this before, and we kind of go from there. And then we make a list, and then we go through the list with our director, and then it's like, hey, who's your order of preference for offers? And we go down the line, and there we go.
Can I add to that?
Of course.
So when we work on projects that may not have funding, and they reach out to casting directors and they want us to come up with a list of names, you have to, we feel, I'm sure all of you feel, that you have to be passionate and love what you're working on. Because if we have to pitch this to a ton of agents and actors, and the process takes a long time, the money's not in place yet, it's really important to be connected to the work you're doing and believe in it.
Definitely, yes. It is hard to pitch something that
Yes.
that you don't really
And they can
care
even
about.
hear it in your voice if you're not into it,
Yeah, and
Yes.
it gets harder every time. And I think you guys would agree that part of our relationships with the agents is that if we're pitching them something, it is something we think is good. It is something that we believe in. It is we're putting our own reputation up with that as well. So it's not as simple as just saying oh yeah, it's a great script. If you don't think it's a great script, you have to really pitch people the things that you think will actually land and that you actually believe in, because then the next time you come to them, they're like, yeah, you said the last one was a great script and it wasn't. So I do think that can sometimes be something that people forget, is that as casting directors, we have relationships with agents. And so if we're saying, like, your client should really consider this, we need to really believe that. But also the opposite. So how do you navigate, let's say, with a filmmaker who's, you know, looking to shoot for the stars, wants like the biggest names, but maybe doesn't have quite that budget? How do you navigate finding people that will fit the budget and, you know, the kind of star value that you'll need, knowing that maybe, like, you know, your kind of top 10 movie stars probably aren't even gonna look at the script?
To bring them down to earth.
Yeah.
That's actually my first thing,
Lower
ground
the
them.
standards and ground it.
And that
Yes.
happens in the preliminary meeting
Yes.
before signing on.
Yes.
Because if they're not going to be open to that idea, you know, then there's no reason to jump on board. And that's no offense to any filmmaker. I think we're all excited about potential, whatever, but we have to, our job is to be your partner in crime and being like, look, this is what's going on out there. This is the info. This is what we suggest, you know?
Also, sometimes they give you these pie in the sky, and you do a check-in, and sometimes they want to do it. You just don't know. And then there's the times that you're all cast and everything's great, and you're going to shoot X, Y, and Z, and then the funding is gone all of a sudden. And you got to call the actors or the agents and tell them. Most of the time they kind of understand, because a lot of agents are involved in producing. Like, there were a couple that were really upset, but the rest were okay with it because they know we've been around a long time and they can trust there'll be something coming, you know, in the next months or so.
Or you hope that it'll come back
That's
around,
right.
that it's not, yeah. There's definitely those
That's
kind of
hard.
zombie
Yeah,
movies, like literally where it's like, it's happening, no, it's gone.
right.
No, it's back, no, it's gone. No, it's really happening this time. So,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to navigate that. That's really true. So when you're looking for actors that aren't just like, you know, names or people that we've seen, how do you look for talent? Like, what platforms do you use? What technology do you use? Do you do things in person? Like, what's your process, each of you?
Well, I started casting, street casting, so that was a long time ago, but we keep a great database of people. Like you mentioned, we remember everything, and we do. And we go back to that talent, even if they weren't right for the first thing we brought them into, we go back to that database. We use platforms like casting networks and breakdown services. We also have a great rapport with agents and managers, so they'll pitch to us. And then just researching and discovering and understanding like what we're looking for. So it might be, you know, for one project, we interviewed psychologists, or we were looking for talent with disabilities, and we have to really get granular in that world to find those people. It's not just posting on social media, but having conversations to understand what we're casting.
Great. And do you use any, do you use social media to find talent at all? Anyone?
It depends on what it is. Like for commercials or branding content, some clients want like an influencer or influencer type for that particular brand, and we use social media for that. I do a lot of open calls. I cast a lot of specific roles that are sometimes not on the platforms. I feel like I've cast every ethnicity that there isn't imagined that there's out there. But so it's kind of like the more specific a story is or a project is in terms of the spec, the more out of the box thinking that you have to do, you know? I think reps are getting more open to representing people of color, and there's a lot more support around that. So we are finding that through more traditional channels as well. So I think it's not like one channel's better than the other. It's just a matter of like for the leads, you're going to most likely go through agents, managers, especially if it's a name that's needed for financing. But I love looking for emerging actors and people, that audiences don't know yet. That's so exciting, especially if it's like teens or just like a character in their early 20s. And, there's a role for everyone, So I think, so we just have to get creative. So in addition to, what Kristen already expressed, like the different platforms, I love tech, so I'm always also have an eye out for other like new platforms that come out just to see what they offer, because I feel like each platform has a different specialty as well, so I tailor my process with that.
We go out all the time to see theater, Broadway shows, but a lot of these small, theaters that nobody really goes to, like there'll be 6 people in the audience, but sometimes there's some gem in there that nobody's gonna see them, but you got a chance to. We do that, watch as much as possible, go to, all the showcases from that
Schools,
come
yeah.
to New York for the schools, and then there's also that comes to us through email and links. So we're constantly doing that. So that's also what we do. But also with the real people that we do, we're out there and searching and searching. It's sometimes like for days. I'm on something that we've been casting for 2 weeks. They need like 20 people, and it is grueling. It's fun when it's done, but it's grueling. For some of those real people projects, we used to do it on the street also, but it's so nice to have a computer to do your research than, guerrilla casting in the street.
Yeah. And all of us work on so many different platforms, commercials, film, TV, voiceover, short film. So there's all different strategies. Every job has a different strategy attached to it, how we find talent.
Fantastic. And how has, going off of what Liz is saying, how has technology impacted your work, and how do you think it'll continue to impact in the future?
I think it's great in the sense of it helps with our turnaround, especially these days, at least, I'll speak for myself, I find that like a lot of producers, they want things quicker and more for the same amount of casting budget. So it's like, okay. So technology is really amazing if it's a platform that can handle everything from end to end, from the release of the breakdown, going through submissions. Any actors that are in the audience, please always keep your materials updated. If it's dated, we may pass over it just because it's like, what does she look like now? I don't know, because it looks like a really old photo. We have to always see what you look like in the present, And then, what was I gonna say? And then, we have virtual sessions. Some people have callbacks in person. I'm still virtual just because inevitably someone from my team is always not in the same place as me. It's like everyone's scattered, whether it's in Texas or New York or LA or London. So we're still virtual. But it's become much more efficient in terms of, I always give like instructions ahead of time. Like, this is what to expect. This is what you're gonna say in the slate, just so it keeps the session going. And then everything's, uploaded to the cloud and we can present right away to the client. And, I think more and more decisions have to be made quicker now. Time is of the essence, especially in casting. So whether it's, pressure from the director to get something done, or just pressure on everyone, especially our teams or our clients. So we have to keep that in mind. So if we're asking actors, hey, we really need this tape in by this deadline, there's a reason for it, And of course, we always try to make sure that there's ample time for you to study the scenes, et cetera, or look at the copy, whatever the kind of project it is. But yeah, in the future, there's obviously, needless to say, there's a lot of question marks about with the AI impact on performers and, their likeness and things like that. I do agree that actors should be compensated for that, for their likeness to be used in whatever capacity. So I think those are ongoing conversations that SAG-AFTRA is having. The whole thing with vertical shorts now. SAG-AFTRA is, I think I'm not sure if they completed the agreement, but they came up with, they're in talks about an actual vertical shorts agreement, which I think is great. We have to go through how technology evolves. We just have to, it's part of life, But I do feel that the true sense of storytelling, I don't think that will ever go away. Like people wanting to see people in films, not AI characters and all that.
Great, yes.
All of that, yes. There's such a quicker turnaround on projects, and I think it's giving an opportunity for us to see more actors, and that's been wonderful. And in different locations, so the technology has helped with that, and the demands are definitely on us with the turnaround time. Like we had a project right before holiday weekend recently, 17 roles, name talent, and actors locally, and we had a call back on Tuesday. So that was a lot, but we handle it, and technology has helped us through those processes.
Liz?
I have a quick comment. If you're actors out there, the picture and resume, especially the resume, is your business card. Nobody uses those anymore, but you must be on top of it. I can't tell you how many times we're going through film casting and somebody hasn't attached their resume. We have no idea what you've done before. So it's up to you to do it, but also if you do have an agent, it's important that you keep them abreast of what's happening, because the way the show business is now, it's more business than show. I would love it to be more show than business, but you become your own business people now. And if you're home and you're doing an audition or a self-tape, I don't care really what your background is, the background in your studio, I don't care about that. If you're freaked out about your lighting and don't. We can see through that. It's been long enough that we've been able to do that. So just, relax. Do your best job.
We appreciate all you're doing with the self-tapes. It's really wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of
And yes,
work
we
for
watch
actors.
them.
Yes.
Yes.
We watch them.
All of them.
We
Anyone
sure
says
do.
we don't, ignore them.
Yeah, we sure do. And we set aside time to do it, and we do it like at
We're
night.
up till 2 a.m.
after-
watching them.
Yeah. And, at
Yep.
night, first thing in the morning while we're like eating breakfast, we're watching self-tapes. Which is a nice thing for us. I mean, maybe not for our work-life boundaries, but we can only see so many, we have 2 hours to see people in person, or on Zoom, we can only see what we can see in 2 hours. Whereas if we get self-tapes in, it's like, well, I can watch a couple in between my appointments here, and I can watch a couple after dinner, and I can do the rest in the morning. And you're able to see things just like on your own time. That allows us to see a lot more people. And I also just wanted to pick up on something you said, Liz, which is also about resumes. You would be surprised. There are people who have won awards and that role's not on their resume, because it's just they assume someone else has updated it. And so you really want, or it's they just had some big thing come out, at Sundance, but that's not on the resume because it's not up to date. And also a lot of filmmakers, some are very, very well versed in actors, but I'm sure you've worked with others who really only know who 3 actors are. No, it's true. You'd be surprised. It's the 5 actors everybody knows, and then that's about it. So don't assume that someone would know any actor's credits. That's not Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, and Denzel Washington. Really, it's surprising. I'm sure you guys have encountered that, where there are actors you think are very established and people have no idea of their work or their experience, and then want them to audition. So I'm curious, how do you navigate that around, which actors would be potentially offer only versus actors that would read?
I think it depends on a lot of times who the director is. If you're a bigger name and you're gonna do a Martin Scorsese movie. Would you audition? Yes, of course you would. But a lot of the independents that are with, writers and directors and producers that have never done anything, you have to be really careful and how you ask somebody that's really highly accredited if they would. Sometimes they will, but a lot of times the bigger names are terrible auditioners. So why put them through that? Get a reel, of theirs instead.
Speaking of reels, sorry, could you just backtrack 1 second? Make sure your reels are updated. Any actors in the audience? Are there any actors in this audience? Okay. Oh, there we go.
Many.
So many. Wonderful. Please make sure your reels are updated, that you have work that you're proud of that's on your reel, and that we could see you. It's like roles that we can see you. It's one line. Okay, okay, if you're starting out, fine. But it should be, scenes that actually showcase your range. That's what we're looking for, is what is your range, if we don't know you already. But no matter what, there's always a new casting director that you have to meet. So there's plenty of shaking hands. So you have to make sure your materials are up to date. And whether you have representation or not, you are responsible for your career. Never, I understand like people build teams and that's wonderful, but you have to take responsibility for your decisions and your choices. So and then you add that to your team too. It's a collective, but anyone could be dropped by ACA or whomever tomorrow for whatever reason, But just now back to this, it depends on like the project. Like for example, I have there's a feature I attached talent to. The director wanted to meet people, especially for the male lead, considering the kind of role it was. This is actually probably one of the hardest roles I had to cast. I was like, this is like the bane of my existence, this role. But anyway, point being, I got it done. But some actors were offer only, just based on their caliber, and like it's very clear that they'd be right for the role. And then some like director was like, I'm not sure, they're great, but I would like to have a conversation with them just to make sure that we're on the same page. And this was going to be his fourth feature, so it's not like he's just, is starting out. So, but then there's other actors that, it's between 3 and 5 million that project. So some will be straight offer, some will, or they won't be a straight offer for a studio film. So it depends. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this. Everything it's so nuanced and it's very different from each project. So hence we keep copious notes for a reason, of who's going to be open to what on what budget level. Some people don't want to even look at a script unless you can guarantee them $150,000. So, it's trial and error. So.
We used to do something called read offers. I don't know if you guys, but we would get a bigger name actor to read with a scale offer. And that used to work. People don't really do that so much anymore. People were surprised that I said something like that, but it does happen. So at least they're getting some payment to read. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I've never done that. So, yeah. So in terms of getting those actors, like oftentimes at some point there's a meeting in the process. So do you have thoughts on, advice to filmmakers when they're meeting actors potentially to be in
Watch
their
their
films?
work and be familiar with it. Be prepared to ask questions, and also, what's the most important thing about the character, and see if that actor is aligned with it, at least the baseline of that character. I think also be open to other ideas that the actor has about the character that could actually add an interesting spin on it. As long as I always say be open to everything as long as it serves the character and the story, it should be okay.
I have one more thing. Also, if you're making a movie and you're lucky enough to get this meeting with this namey person, it should just be you, the director, having this meeting, not other people. It confuses the issue, and it's just not professional, you know? So that's just one thing I want to add in. Thanks.
Yeah, yes. I've had that come up before and be like, no. And how any advice also on navigating kind of the lack of like in-person potentially, you know, because a lot of the times these meetings might be on Zoom. Anything to say on how to kind of, I feel like it's a lot like dating, like you're trying to like pitch yourself on Zoom. Any advice on how to kind of put your best foot forward in that way?
Just be yourself.
Like
you
dating?
know? Yeah, just be yourself. And you know, I think the most important thing is, I mean, actors want to work. They also want to work with great directors who have a vision and they're sure about that vision. Confidence is key. If you're not confident, they're going to be a little shaky on working with you. That's not like very black or white in terms of thinking, but like, you know, they're there for a reason. Excuse me, sorry. They like the script and they are like, I want to meet with this director because there's something there. So go with that and, you know, bring your all in a very subtle way.
And definitely share why you want them. You know, they definitely want to know that. And listen to their point of view of the script, because that's extremely important. You might meet them and not want to work with them after that. Who knows?
And you know what? Even if ultimately if they say no, they say like, hey, I like this, but I'm not sure about this role. I've had that happen before. But then that person was cast for the next film that the director did on a role that they felt it was a better fit for. So I think it's never no, it's just not now. So whether it's, you know, us saying it or the actors saying it, you know, unless there's like a complete misalignment in terms of personalities, and that's different, but you get what I'm saying.
There's also something else that you need to remember as a producer or director and you're having these meetings. No actor is gonna say no to you. They're gonna call their agent, who'll be the good cop, bad cop. They'll be the bad cop. So you're gonna, because nobody wants to piss off a director, because God knows who they're gonna be in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now. So, you know, don't be upset if you think you had a good meeting and then it doesn't happen. That's going to happen more often than not, unless they're become producers on a project and are getting a big payday. You don't know. But just so you know that.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes they might ask for script changes. And knowing if that's something you're open to or not. I mean, I'd say most times they might, like little things, but they might ask for that. So if you as a filmmaker are open to that, great. And if you're not, then it might not move forward. But just knowing what is serving telling the story, because I've definitely had that where it's like, yeah, we had this meeting, it was great, but they wanted to like change this, and this. And some filmmakers are open to that and some aren't. And I think it's helpful to be a little flexible, not be like, every word must be exactly as I wrote it, but also knowing what needs to serve the story that you're telling, and maybe changing like the entirety of like the main character's arc isn't necessarily telling that story. Great. I want to know what you love about casting. Anybody?
Love. Connecting with people. I know that sounds like every one of us can say that, but it's really about connecting and matching the talent with the project. I personally look at people walking on the street all day long and love people watching and make that connection, and also making the talent and the project so connected by who we find. When we find that right match, it's everything.
Seeing the final product is always amazing. and then you think like, oh, all that hard work was worth it. You know what I mean? Like you feel like that in the moment, but it can get stressful, you know, especially if we have tight turnaround and, well, there's always a tight turnaround, but you know, it's especially when you have like your team, and it's just exciting. I love working with actors in the room and directing them. It's just so much fun. And you know, we're advocates for actors, you know. I remember one of the films I worked on was on The Catch, and Katya Winter submitted a tape, and she's wonderful. And you know, my director was like, not sure. I'm like, no, just, she was in my top 4 of on my list. And I was like, no, let's bring her back. He's like, he wasn't sure. I'm like, no, just come on, bring her back. Damn it. So, and then we brought her back for a callback, and then she got it. Like, I knew that she was gonna nail it. It was just, she had to be redirected. So that's the tricky thing with self-tapes. We can't redirect you in real time, but if we know your work enough, it's like we know, okay, this is an off day, or whatever the case may be. But that's really exciting about the process, is, you know, kind of collaborating with the team. I love that casting is not just about, you know, knowing actors, but there's that directing element with working with performers, and also thinking like a producer in a way. It's kind of like 3 jobs in one in a way. So it's like never a dull moment. So, and I like working on different things, like whether it's a film or a commercial or whatnot. So it's, and also you get to work with people across mediums. So, you know, some of my commercial directors are getting into narrative, and then the reverse. So it's nice to keep those relationships going.
Great. What do you love?
I've always loved it. I mean, I love everything about it, whether it's meeting actors, talking to actors, producers, directors. I mean, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be doing it anymore. And I started as an actor, so I kind of get it, what you guys go through on a daily basis. And just a quick thing, I got a job in production. My parents were like, don't wait tables. They knew I wasn't going to be an actor, for sure, when I came back from school. So I got a job in a casting office, and it was like a whole new world. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And the woman that owned the casting office, Claire Schall, brought me in her room in her office one day, and I thought, for sure I'm getting fired. I've taken off too much. But she sat me down. She said, do you want to buy shoes, or do you want to be an actor? And I didn't hit me yet. Like 5 minutes later, I'm like, I definitely want to buy shoes. I love shoes. And she said to me, I'm going to teach you everything I know. You're not an actor. You are a casting director. And that's what changed my life.